So I would like to give you a very, very warm welcome to our workshop today. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Jess from Design School, and I'm coming to you today from Canva Space, our newest venue here in Sydney. We're really excited to be launching a new and regular series of online and face-to-face content out of our Canva Space for you, our Canva community. To find out about upcoming events, just head to our Canva Space website, which Enza is showing you on the screen there, at canva.com/Canva-space. And I'm going to pop that link in the chat as well for you to copy and use and visit. So on that page, you'll find live webinars and a range of interactive content designed to empower our community to design. I'm absolutely thrilled to have Enza here with us today, our brand designer, to take us through some design makeovers of designs submitted by you, our design community. Over to you, Enza.
Thank you, Jess. Hi, everyone. As Jess introduced me, my name is Enza. I'm a brand designer here at Canva, and I've been doing design for, I would say maybe over 15 years now, so it's been a little while. And I was lucky enough to hop into our design circle, which is our group on Facebook, and have a look at some design submissions. And I have 3 people's designs today. I have Alvin's design, Niti's design, and Lisa's design. And they've all designed something different. So we're going to explore a few different Canva docs. And hopefully we can have a look at some of the kind of makeovers, and you guys can get a bit of a sense of some design principles and how I have applied them in these designs. So let's dive in. So the first design is from Alvin, and Alvin has designed a logo. So this is a logo for a local company in Singapore. I'm assuming it's probably like a childcare service or something to do with children. So Alvin has sent us his Canva doc. So first off, you'll see in black over here, this is the before design, and Alvin has had, he's done some concepts for the after design. And I think he's definitely made an improvement. But I can see here that Alvin's gone for more of a logo evolution instead of a revolution. And sometimes updating a logo is also fine. We don't need to do a complete redesign of something. And I think, look, it's a great design of an old logo. It's already looking much, much better. But there are a few little tips and tricks that I think we can focus on in this design. So I've chosen 3 things to focus on. The first one is contrast. Here we can see that it's on an orange background, which can make it a little tricky to read. So I think that we can focus on some color contrast. So I'll hop in and have a talk to you about that. The next thing is some consistency. I think we could probably try to get some repetition throughout the design to help things feel like they live together and they belong to the same family. And then the last thing is the logo practicality. So when I say that, I really mean what's the versatility of the logo and how usable is this logo? So if we were to blow it up on a t-shirt or use it on something small like a pen, would this logo actually work? So focusing on those 3 things, let's hop into the doc. So here, Alvin has supplied me with the logo illustration part of the logo in black, which is great. So I'm going to use this later, and we can create a logo that is one color. So generally, I like to create a few different versions of logo files. So this was really handy. So thanks, Alvin, for sending that through. And this was his design that he had chosen. So the first thing that I do when I do a critique is I always duplicate the page. So I'll just hit the duplicate page button. And instantly I have a copy of that. So I can always scroll to before and after and check out what I'm doing and how it's working. Okay, so I said I was going to have a look at contrast. So the first thing I want to do is yellow can be a really difficult color in logo design, particularly used for text. So if we use it on a white background, there isn't much contrast. Now, Alvin had put it on an orange background, but what if this logo isn't always on an orange background? So what I would like to do is select the text first, and I'm going to change the color, but I'm going to look for consistency. So when I go over to my text color, I can have a look and see that I have a few like colors that it's picked up from the original photo that is used here. But I'd really like to use something that is living in the illustration. So I'm going to go to new color. And if I had the exact hex code, this would make my life a lot easier, but unfortunately I don't. So I'm going to kind of guess what this color is for now. But I'm going to try and guess that sort of greeny color. I think that's probably looking quite close. And you can see I've pulled the color of the green from the boy's little t-shirt over here. And I think that probably from a contrast perspective is probably going to work a little bit better on the white background. The next thing I want to do is I feel like this text sitting alongside this text is contrasting maybe too much, and we could probably get some more consistency from there. I don't necessarily think it needs to be the exact same font, but I think we could probably choose something that maybe has a little bit of a slant to it. So this font actually has a little bit of a slight lean to the letters. So I think if we choose something that looks maybe a little bit italic as well, that might help too. So I'm just going to select that font and go over to my type. I'm going to type in handwriting, because I think as far as the idea goes, I think Alvin's done a really good job at picking fonts that actually feel quite childlike. So I want them to still sit within that concept, but I feel like maybe we could go for something that is a little bit easier to read. I'm just going to choose this first one here, Canva student font. And I think that probably works quite well. We can adjust the size a little bit if we like, just to make it a little bit bigger. And I'll just check that that's actually in the center of everything, which these little smart guides that are popping up in pink here are telling me. So, I mean, they're just a couple of small changes that I think already have sort of pulled it into a really nice direction. One of the other things that I wanted to have a look at is the usability of the logo. Now, I really like curved text, and it's kind of like a new Canva feature. So for me, I feel like it's a bit of a novelty. I always try to use it where I can. And it does work in this instance. If we wanted to sort of to pull it down a little bit so it sits closer to the illustration, I think that probably works. So we can kind of adjust the spacing here. But I'd really like to explore what this would look like if we had straight text to make this logo a little more versatile. So I'm going to do a duplicate and I'll select the text. And if I go up to effects, which is where Alvin would have applied his curve, yep, he's done that here. I can actually just choose none and it will go back down to straight for me. I'm going to, this is a handy little trick. I don't know if you guys know this. It's one of my favorite tricks. If you hold Option and drag from the corner, it'll actually drag the whole thing down in size. I like that little trick. I'll share that with you. And I'm going to just work on my layout here. So I'd like the illustration to sit above, maybe something like that. I can kind of play around with some sizes as well. And I think if I tuck this in, it's actually creating a really nice shape here. So this little girl's legs are sitting really nicely in this sort of white space where the D and the Y and the C live. So I think that's kind of sitting together and grouped really well. And I'm also just going to bring the accompanying U a little closer too. So I feel like that sits together better as a logo. So if I just sort of scroll up and show you where I was. So I think this still works, definitely. And we could have a few different versions of the logo, maybe one where we don't have the tagline. I think that works really nicely. But once we add the tagline in, it starts to feel a little disjointed. So I think maybe something like this might visually sit together really nicely and it creates a really nice shape all together. So that would be my sort of critique from the logo. Maybe if I can just make it nice and big, that's better. We can actually compare it with the original one. So that's where we were originally. And then we moved there. And then we've taken it there. So there's one more part to this that I mentioned earlier, which was having a look at a logo in different formats. So this would be our color version. And I would probably also create a black version. So I'm just going to duplicate that and do that here. Now I know that Alvin on this earlier page, there we are, he has our little illustration. So I'm just going to copy that with Command C and then scroll down here and I'm going to Command V to paste it. I'm going to use my little option trick again and drag that down and just put it over the top. Then I'm going to cut it. I've still got it selected. Delete the one here in the background, and then Command V to paste it. And that's going to paste that in the right spot. So I've just picked up the top layer, removed the bottom layer, and then pasted it on top. So here we have our black version. Now we obviously just need to change this type to black as well. And there we have it. So I think it's really important to know that when you have a logo, you can clearly have different types of formats. But I also think about what you're going to need the logo for. So if we needed to print this on some t-shirts, would we need to get that embroidered? Would the accompany you actually work for that purpose? Maybe not. Maybe we would have to drop that off. So I think when you think about your usage of the logo, that's really important. One other thing that I would probably have a think about, I'm just going to duplicate another page here. You'll notice that I love to duplicate pages. I try not to override the pages I'm on, and I try to duplicate them so I don't lose anything in the design. What we could do is remove the tagline, and using my little option trick again, we can test to see if this is going to work at a small scale. And it sort of does. So if we imagine we were going to put this design on a pen or something that's really tiny, if I hold Option with it selected, I can also duplicate. So I'll duplicate this out. So you can copy and paste or hold Option, and that will do it too. And I can remove the illustration and then just use the type if I was going to put it on a pen. So I just kind of want to communicate that you can have lots of different versions of logos for different formats. And I think that maybe when you're designing a logo, just consider the different ways that you may use that logo, because you might need a few different files. So that's my first little critique. Did you guys have any questions or any thoughts on how it went?
There's no questions yet. Although Camille's wondering what the Option button is for PC.
I believe it's Control, I believe, or it might be Alt. I haven't used a PC in a little while. You could test them both.
Yeah, give those a go. Let us know if they work. Perfect. She'll try that.
Great.
Cool. No other questions. But yeah, really interesting to see how we can have lots of different versions of the logo to make it as flexible as possible for use.
Yeah, I think it's really important. I think you shouldn't limit yourself to one particular logo design just because that works on one format. I think you can have a few different ones, as long as the logos aren't too different and they all still feel like they're part of the family, the same family. You definitely can. Yeah.
Hannah said she really likes the black and white one because it looks fun and appropriate for a children's logo.
Oh, that's lovely. Okay, cool. The next design is Niti's design. So Niti has done a brochure cover, and this is for an interior design company. So it's their brochure for the company. It's done at A4 size, and it is the cover of the brochure, which I think is important to remember. So I love this design. I think it's really, really eye-catching for a cover, and that's super important. When you're thinking about covers, you want them to be really captivating, and you want to pick them up and open the book and have a look inside. So I think Niti's done a great job so far. I would love to focus on, again, 3 things. These 3 things, this time, I am going to have a look at some hierarchy, and then I'm going to have a look at some balance, and I think we could also visit alignment as well. So focusing on those 3 things, I'm going to start and dive in. So my favorite thing, duplicate the page. And the first thing I want to talk about is the hierarchy of this design. So at the moment, the first thing I'm looking at when I look at this design is the image. Now, it's a beautiful image. And I really love how Niti has used some great consistency and repetition with the colors. So she's picked up on this really beautiful blue background. And then she's also used some grays in the graphic element in the background as well. So that really kind of holds the design together really well. But I feel like probably the headline should be maybe the first thing that we look at in the hierarchy. So ideally, I think if I was to break down this hierarchy, I would say the headline would be big, then I would look at the image, and then I would probably look at the logo, which is at the bottom. So knowing that, we can start to play around with the design a little bit. So let's have a look if we were to visit some different ways that we could make the headline the first point of hierarchy. Now, the obvious one is playing with size. So let's have a look. I'm probably just going to like guess something, let's say like 70 point. Probably still looks a little bit too small. Let's try 90. Okay, so my frame needs a little bit of widening. And I'm probably going to align it to the left for now. There's a little bit of white space through here, so we'll see if we can fit it in there. And you can see it's getting a bit tricky to see the letters, but this spacing feels really off. There's way too much space in between the lines. So I'd like to decrease that. And there's also quite a bit of space in between the letters. So if I go up here to spacing, I can then start to reduce some of that spacing. And I'd like it to be quite together and tight, so it really sits together and holds its own as a headline. And I think that's probably looking good already. And then I just want to obviously make sure that it fits into my margins. So you can see the margins snap through here. But if you like, you can also go up to File and Show Margins, and you'll see those little grey dots that have come through. You can start to have a look at your margins in your design. And it's important to always keep things inside the margins, because what we want to try and do is not cut anything off when we're printing. So if everything has some really beautiful even space around it, then it will work together as a design a lot better. So I'll start off with that. It's getting a bit tricky to read, so I might actually have a look at my color options here. So one handy thing in Canva that I really like is in your color palette. Sometimes if you have an image or a photo in your design, it will pick up and predict some colors and create a palette for you. This is really, really handy because you don't have to go ahead and try and guess colors. So I'm going to choose this gray and see what that looks like. I think that looks quite nice. And so now I feel like I'm looking at the heading at first, then I'm looking at the image. And then I think the logo is probably a little, actually quite big. So we might be able to decrease that a little bit too. And just nudge it like so. And already I think that's looking a little bit stronger. Now this sort of interruption with the image is not bothering me too much, but I would like to try one thing where maybe we flip the image so it's coming in from the other side of the page. And I'm just thinking, if it's a cover, it might actually work nicely because it might navigate the reader's eye down to that right edge of the page through here. And it might entice me to open up the brochure or to flip the brochure. So let's try that. I'm just going to make another duplicate. And I'm going to select the graphic in the background and I'm going to try and flip it. So let's flip it horizontally. And I might need to do a little turn here as well. We can play with this angle a little bit and move it around. And just test it and see. I might even resize it a little bit, make it a little bit smaller. And then of course we'll bring the image across. So maybe something like that could work. Might make it just a little bit smaller and see where that's going. And instantly I can start to see, I can read my heading a little bit clearer now. It's not, the graphic in the background isn't interrupting it too much, and it's still keeping it at the first point of hierarchy. However, my logo down here, it feels very diagonal. So there's a really nice kind of empty space here. So maybe to balance out the design, I might just bring that across and follow that point of alignment. And have a look at something like that. We could just nudge it a little bit to get a bit more spacing correct. But yeah, I think that probably is starting to look a little bit more like a cover that really owns a brochure. It might be using the space a little bit more in a clever way. And I can start to see now that as a reader, I would probably, as it's bleeding off the page, it's sort of subconsciously telling me, hey, there's more information around the corner. Why don't you turn the page and continue. So let's just have another look at where we were and see what the final design has come to. So that's the original. And that could potentially be one solution where we increase the hierarchy. And then the second solution where that graphic is still really dominant, but we've just made it a little bit smaller to give everything a bit more space to breathe. And we can really focus on the headline, the graphic, and then the logo. And we're really navigated throughout that design. So that is Nitty's design.
Excellent. Nitty says, wow.
Thanks, Nitty. I'm glad you're on the call to watch the critique live.
We did have one question, actually. It was about the logos before, quickly, and it was about how to export a logo, like which file types you should use when you export a logo.
Yeah, very good question. Let's have a look at that now. I'll just pop this little Zoom window over to the side. Okay, so let's scroll down to this page. Let's say I'm going to export page 5. So I would go up to download. Now, you'll see in the drop down, there are a few different options. PNG is suggested for logos, but a PNG file, it's basically like a JPEG. It's a little bit better quality, but it won't export your background of a white background. So if you did want to put this then onto a colored background, you could, because everything that's white would export clear or transparent. So you can select PNG and then you can tick transparent background and it will download that file without the background. However, if you do have Pro, what's really handy is to download an SVG file. And this file is handy if you're sending it to any graphic designers or any web designers or anyone that will need a vector file. So a vector file just means that you're able to scale the logo up really, 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 really big and it won't pixelate. Whereas if you export a PNG, it's still fine and it will still be quite high quality. But if you did want to put it on like the side of a plane, for example, then it would definitely pixelate. So I would go PNG if you've got the Canva free, that will do you fine. But if you did have Canva Pro and you were going to use your logo for multiple purposes and maybe send it to a few people that you're working with, potentially an SVG file will help.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. With the brochure design, Nitty's brochure design,
yes.
She just asked, would you now make it white, the font color? Would you still go with the gray? Now it's got more space.
Potentially, I think if we make it white, at the moment, I've still got this little white circle here. So that would be a bit tricky. It wouldn't be as legible. So you can see that there. But you could experiment with different colors. It doesn't have to be gray. I was actually looking at this color over here before and wondering whether I should play with that. So, I mean, that looks quite nice. And that's, it feels fitting because it's pulled from those photo colors and it's consistent from the image in here. So you'll see that that color is pulled from kind of the top of the image there. So I think that also works. So don't feel limited to sort of have to do one particular color. You can experiment and play with those. You know, well, what would happen if you moved this further down? Then you could totally have it white. So you could continue to sort of work this design and develop the layout as you go on.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Lisa wondered if you might even flip the interior solutions to be right aligned. Would you do that?
You could, but the thing that I'm liking about this design at the moment is the alignment, which I spoke about a little bit before. And I think what works in design is when you have a really strong point of alignment, what it tends to do is it holds common objects together and really grounds your design. So in this instance, you can see on this left margin here, I'm using this headline to align with the logo. And that is making those two elements feel like I'm here, I'm present in the design, and I'm grounded. Whereas if we start to play around with what a right design might look like, there's just a little extra space here. So I'm just going to get rid of that. Like so, it still works. It's this very asymmetrical design. So it still feels balanced because one thing is up here and one thing is down here. So it's balancing it out. But they're not in relation to each other anymore. So they definitely feel like three separate elements on the page. Whereas if I go back to where we were, it almost starts to build a relationship between these two elements. Then you can start to see how they're grounded together.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Okay, great. How are we going for time? We're all good?
Yeah, we've got a few minutes left.
Okay, great. So I'm going to hop into the last design. So the final one is Lisa's design. Now, Lisa has designed a business card, and I'm assuming it's for her business, which is called Social Zeal. I'm guessing that because there's an S and a Z here on the logo. So I'm sort of gathering this information as I'm doing it. And then it looks like she has a list of services that she offers, and then she's got contact details. So first off, it looks like a business card, but it's a single-sided business card. So Lisa's designed just one side, not a double-sided. So I'm going to stick with that. Maybe she's done that for cost reasons, or maybe she's going to print these out at home and she doesn't want to sort of solve the tricky bit of printing on both sides. So let's say it's going to be a single side. Let's stick with that. What I'm really liking about Lisa's design at the moment is her alignment. So we were talking about alignment in the last design. She's aligned everything really nicely here. So these guys are aligned to the left, but she's also got this really nice sort of horizontal alignment where she's aligned the information with sort of the type over here. So my eye is really kind of guided horizontally. So I think that's working really well. I'd like to get a little bit more balance in the design. And I think what I'm going to focus on here is hierarchy, spacing, and in particular, what sort of information do you need on a business card and why? So if we just start with that topic, Jess, I might need you to read out some responses in the chat for me, but why would you even have a business card? What is the purpose of a business card?
Networking, says Hannah.
Networking, definitely a reason to have a business card. Why would you give someone a business card for networking? What is the purpose of a business card though?
Lisa says a digital business card.
You could definitely have a digital business card. And maybe this is what you've designed. I'm assuming this is the same Lisa as the design. So it's probably what she's done.
To give your contact information. And yes, she said it is her.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. So definitely to give you contact information. So that is the purpose for a business card. And what we're seeing...
Hannah says that you want new business as well.
Yeah, totally. So you want to advertise the information as far as how to contact me, but also information around what I can do for you, right? So there are two things. And if we have a look at the importance of these information and try to sort of categorize them in a sequential order, I would think that a business card is something that people would probably keep in their drawer or on their desk and then think, oh, I need to contact Lisa. I don't remember her details. Let me grab her business card. They're probably already going to know, what does Lisa do? Because they've probably met you, you've probably told them, you've given them a business card, or you've sent them an email and you've attached a digital business card, either or. But yeah, totally. I think you would definitely be, first of all, giving them your contact information, and then second of all, letting them know what you do. So if that's our order of hierarchy, we can start to arrange the information in that way. So just going to move this little window across. Sorry, guys, it's in my way again.
Lisa says the business card can also be quickly resized to fit social media stories, etc.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So I would, let's say we're going to do a printed business card, and then we can chat about how we could resize that and reorder the information for something that's digital, whether it's via email or something like that. Okay, so let's duplicate the page. So we've got our before and after that we can reference. And the first thing I would like to do is, we've just been talking about hierarchy and the order of hierarchy. So in order to help us do that, we need to separate everything into separate text boxes so that we can then start to play with the sizing and get our hierarchy working. So I've got Lisa's name. I'm going to select the name of her business. And if I hit Command X, I'm going to cut that. And then Command V is going to paste it again. Now, don't worry if it's in a different font size or font style. That's fine. We can fix that later. And then it looks like we've got these 3 services, which I'll keep separately. And then we've got Lisa's email. So let's get her email and cut that again and then paste that in. So everything that needs to be in an order is actually sitting in its own separate box now. So it's going to be easier for us to play around with this and move things around, change the sizes and the styles. Okay, so we've got Lisa Leary, awesome. Then we've got Social Zeal, that's the company name, great. Then we've got our services and then we've got our contact details. So I'm guessing on the business card, maybe we probably need a phone number as well. So maybe we can kind of put T, which will be for telephone, and maybe E, which will be for email. And I'm just going to put a fake number here. And I like to put spaces between my numbers because I think when people are referencing phone numbers, if you can put them in groups of 3 or 4 digits, people can remember them as they're typing. So if you imagine they're looking at your business card and they're like, oh, 1, 2, 3. Okay, 1, 2, 3. And then they'll type that in and then it'll continue that way. So I think that will be handy. Okay, so we've kind of separated these out. Now let's start to look at the hierarchy. Now I did say that I felt like this is the most important piece of information. So I'd like to have this quite high up in the hierarchy. I don't think the services are as important. So potentially we could maybe have a look at bringing these down the bottom and imagining if they just run in a line that sits along the bottom of the card, that could work. So let's hypothetically just put them in a line, and I'm going to use this little symbol, like a little divider line symbol on my keypad, just to separate them. And I'm going to extend this box out. Now that doesn't quite fit, so I need to adjust my size. Let's say we go for 7 point. And maybe if we change the font, because at the moment, everything's in the same font. So let's have a look for something that's a little simpler. I've been using this font lately, a Grandie. I really like it. I'm just going to pick that. Okay, but there are a few effects applied and it's getting a bit tricky to read. So instantly I'm going to take away uppercase. And I'm also going to have a look in effects and see what's going on. Okay, so it looks like we have a hollow effect applied here. I'm just going to go ahead and type none for now. And instantly that's letting my eyes breathe a little bit. I'm just going to extend that box a bit more and tuck that in the corner. And that's just sort of running down the bottom now. So I can sort of have that there as the send off information. This is additional content. Great. So now let's have a look at the rest of the copy. Now, the one thing that I really liked about Lisa's design was that she had this horizontal sort of alignment happening. So I'm going to continue that and try and align this with the start and the end of the logo. So we've got Lisa's name. It's quite big. At 16 point, that's going to be quite big on a page. I think if we go for something maybe like 13, that might be a little less dominant. And then we have the word social zeal. So I don't know how many of you know this little handy trick. I love it. I love showing it to people and watching it blow their minds. If you select some text that has a style that you like and you want to apply to another. So I want to grab this and I want to apply it to this. So I will select that text frame and I'll go up here to my copy style paint roller and click that. And you'll see the paint roller is now loaded. It was empty before. And I'm going to go ahead and click on social zeal and it will apply the exact same style to this font as well, to this text frame, sorry. So we've now got Lisa from Social Zeal. And then maybe we want to apply that to this information as well. So I'll do the same thing. I'll select that text box, copy my style, load up the brush, and select the rest of the text. Now that's all getting a little bit too big. So maybe we need to reduce the size of that. Or actually, I'm just thinking about it now, maybe if we bring this typeface back into things, then it might, we might get some nice consistency between the two. So I'll select that. This guy over here was called a grandeur, so I'll choose him. Just going to get rid of the uppercase again and get rid of this effect as well. So that can go nice and plain. And then we can reduce some sizing. I can see my spacing is out of whack. There we go. So the line height is not quite right. So let's fix that up. And that's starting to look a little bit better. So we can then start to have a look at some spacing. The next thing I can do for hierarchy is have a look at some color. So if I introduce some color in here, maybe it will start to have a bit more contrast and brighten up the design. So I'm going to select this text over here and use this navy that's being pulled from the logo. And then maybe I want to pull out Lisa's name because that's quite important. And I'll put that in that navy as well. So now everything has kind of been styled. I've started to look at where things might sit in the design. And it's really just about pulling together those fine-tuning bits and having a look at the attention to detail. So now I really want to have a look at crafting the design. And by that, I mean like the tiny, minute things. So maybe the logo is looking a little bit too big. So I might select it and just decrease it a little bit to give it a bit more white space. Maybe center it like that. And then, whoops, I've just pulled the border. So I might just lock this guy so I don't accidentally pull him again. And then I'll select all my text, bring it over and try and play around with this vertical alignment that I had, sorry, the horizontal alignment that I had happening before. So that can start to sit like that. And I might start to continue to play around with some sizes and some spacing, but we can start to see how that has changed a little bit. So if I go back to what Lisa originally had and can make this nice and big. So we needed a little bit more hierarchy and wanted to focus on the information that goes on business cards and then have a look at some spacing. And we've introduced some hierarchy, a little bit of contrast to help with that hierarchy with color, and then revisited some spacing. So this would be great for a business card that you're going to print out that you can give to someone. If we were going to make this a digital business card, potentially if we're emailing it to people digitally, maybe we don't need our email written on there because they'll get that in the email itself. So maybe we want to include a website link instead. So I would always think about what is the purpose of the business cards. Is it going to be digital? Is it more of like an email signature at the bottom of your emails? And what information actually needs to go on there in order to service that. So there
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Enza. That's brilliant. So just a reminder, if you do have to rush off, we've got some time for Q&A, but if you do have to rush off, this session is recorded and all attendees will receive a link to the recording. But hopefully you can stick around for some Q&A. We do already have a question from Camille about the logos, about downloading a logo. If it's just for social media, do you still recommend using a PNG or SVG? If it's
yes.
Print?
Yeah, if you're going to download a logo for social media, you can definitely use a PNG. An SVG won't be good for social media. The SVG is more for design programs, more so, and for like vector editing, which is quite technical. So you probably won't need that. You could use a JPEG, but you just want to check to make sure that the JPEG doesn't pixelate so that it's still nice and sharp. And if the JPEG is a bit too low quality, if you can increase the quality of that, go for it. Otherwise, using a PNG is also fine. And you can use a PNG without a transparent background. If you do want the white in the background as well, you just uncheck that little box in your export options.
Fantastic, thank you. Niti has come back with a question about brochures. For sending brochures in print, should we add print bleeds? And again, is PDF fine for the format?
Yes, great question. Yes, always add print bleeds. Bleeds just allows some extra room for when we're cutting a design of a print to ensure that we don't get any nasty white paper stripes coming through. So it just allows the ink to bleed off to the edge. And a PDF is the perfect file that you want to use here. So let's hypothetically say I want to export page 3. Let's have a look at what that might look like. I can print. In this instance, I'm going to print I've set this up as a letterhead, not a brochure. And I'm not sure if they actually do have bleed in the letterheads. They probably don't. So that won't work. Let's see if we can, here we go, crop marks and bleed. So you can export your PDF print with crop marks and bleed. And if you download that, then it will have it on there for you. So those little crop marks will indicate where it's going to get sliced. In some formats, when you go to the print settings, it'll take you through step 1, 2, 3, and etc. It will get it print ready for you. So I'm just going to, for the sake of this, just say it's single-sided. Yes, I want page 3 on standard paper. Let's pretend I'm doing that and go continue. So step 2 will say, let's get your letterheads print ready. So do you see any white edges? So what this design has done is it's actually picked up my background elements, and you'll see this extra little gray dotted line through here, and it's extended that for me. So I don't manually need to go in and do that. Sometimes it will make that white, and you need to select your background and you actually need to extend it. But in this instance, it's picked up that this is my background color and it's done it for me, which is super handy, which is why printing through Canva sometimes is the easiest, because Canva will pre-predict what you need to do. If you were to export this and then take it somewhere else to print or print it at home, you might have some troubles with those white edges. So when you can, it might be easier to get it professionally printed through Canva service. But if you need to get it printed elsewhere, just be mindful of the crop marks and bleed.
Fantastic. Are there any more questions out there? Oh, we've got some come through. Lisa says, I sometimes get a red outline around a design with a social zeal tagged on it. What does this mean? A red outline around a design.
It might be this guy here. So this just basically says, this is the danger zone. I'm not sure if this is what you're talking about, Lisa. Maybe it is. But again, when you're getting something ready for print, the red outline here is indicating, don't put any important elements in this area because it's going to get cut off. So if we had our text like that, it's showing me here that that red line is actually going to get trimmed off.
No, so, that's really useful information. I don't think it's what Lisa's talking about. Are you talking, it's not a spelling thing around social zeal, perhaps a red outline around a design that has social zeal on it? No.
Sure, it might be.
Difficult to know without seeing it, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, it's not a spelling thing either.
I'm not sure what that's referring to.
That would be maybe a great one to take a picture of and submit to the Design Circle community. Maybe we could come back and grab a screen capture and send along to Design Circle. Maybe we can get to the bottom of that one. Yeah.
Cool.
Fantastic. Any other questions out there? I love Design Circle. Great.
We do too.
Says Lisa. Yeah, fantastic. We do too. Hannah says, this was great, Enza. Some thanks coming through. So yep, sounds like we're done for questions. So yeah, huge thank you to you, Enza, today. That was really, really interesting. And I look forward to some more design critiques coming up for our Design Circle community in the not too distant future.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, guys. I hope you found that useful and had some takeaways. I think it's always good to see someone go through a design so you can see how the thinking works, maybe how they move around Canva, what those little shortcuts are. And hopefully you found some benefit out of this today. But yeah, thanks everyone. And thank you to Alvin, Nitty, and to Lisa, who bravely offered up their designs and their files and let me hop in and move stuff around. I know sometimes that can be a little bit daunting, having someone else in your file and working on your design. But yeah, hopefully I've given some direction to help.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And we'll see you again at the next one.